So I just saw the newest DC film, Blue Beetle. Now, I'm still very confused with how this film fits into the new DC universe. I know that James Gunn said that this version of Blue Beetle will be part of the new universe, but I don't know if this specific film takes place in that universe since there's a decent amount of references to other DC characters. But anyways, my expectations going into this film were relatively low. Obviously, Shazam 2 and The Flash weren't great films, but also the trailers didn't impress me, and I have no background knowledge of Blue Beetle as a character. Now, of course, Xolo Maridueña was great as Miguel in Cobra Kai, so I was looking forward to seeing him here. And the first reviews for this film were actually surprisingly positive, so that definitely made me more excited. I went into this film optimistic, but also skeptical, and I was pleasantly surprised. I actually really enjoyed this film, and I would say it's the best DC film of the year so far, even though that's not a high bar to clear. First of all, I felt like this film just had a lot of passion and heart behind it. This movie dives deep into Latino culture, and it has something to say about society and family. It's filled with personality, not just with the humor, but also with the overall atmosphere and overall setting. It's great to hear that some people are finally feeling represented in this genre, and hopefully this film inspires and connects with many more people in the Latino community. Of course, Xolo Maridueña is great as Blue Beetle, and I'm so happy to see him get into bigger roles since Cobra Kai. He's just very charismatic and fun to be around, and we're always rooting for his character, not just to defeat the bad guy, but to also succeed in his life and goals. Something that I really liked about this film is that they make the entire family front and center. I'm so glad that they didn't go and the kid has to hide his superhero identity from the rest of his family trope. But instead, the family does help Blue Beetle fight against the bad guys, and they also get in on some of the action, which is very refreshing in this genre. Each family member is very developed. The best one here is George Lopez's character, who's just a fun and comedic character who has some great moments. But I also like the relationship between Blue Beetle and his dad and his family's entire backstory. There were some genuinely emotional moments which I was not expecting, and I really liked some of the stuff that they do with these characters. I feel like the action was also decent. Sure, some of it might be generic and stuff we've seen before, but the fight choreography was well done, and I really liked Blue Beetle's practical suit. What I really appreciated about this film was that it didn't try to be the biggest or craziest comic book film of all time. It was relatively small scaled and didn't make any big decisions, and it focused more on the family, which can be a good and bad thing, but it felt more personal. Now, I definitely have problems with this film. First off, like I said, especially with the superhero stuff, it can feel very generic and familiar. I was definitely more interested in the family conflict more so than the comic book action stuff, where we have two people in robot suits fighting against each other with blasters. But we've just already seen that before, and it's not that interesting. The whole premise with someone who gets superpowers randomly, and then there's a evil organization with evil robots who wants to take away that power. It's been done before. Now, I think that it was executed pretty well, but still, the main plot is kinda generic. The villain is also really forgettable. Like I said, there's an evil lady that controls this evil organization who wants to control the Blue Beetle, but none of it is engaging and it's so generic and bland. I cannot tell you a single character trait about this villain, and I was kinda falling asleep when she was on screen. Now, she has a henchman who has another robot suit like Blue Beetle, and who I think should have been the main villain of the movie, since I found that character's backstory to be very interesting. But since the main lady was supposed to be the main bad guy, he gets overshadowed and he felt wasted in a way. Maybe with the right script, he could have been a great antagonist, but I don't really feel that during this movie. And I thought that the villains here were very forgettable. A couple more things here. Some of the CGI was very questionable. I mean, it doesn't come close to the visuals of The Flash. That movie looked awful. And I mean, this movie did reportedly have less than half of the budget for The Flash, which is still $100 million. But there are multiple scenes here where I wish that the CGI was polished more. Also, some of the humor didn't exactly work for me. I found myself rolling my eyes when they were referencing other DC characters, even though, like I said, I have no idea if this takes place in the old universe or not. It's very confusing. There's a running gag where the grandma was holding like a giant gun and shooting everyone, and I think that went on for too long and that didn't exactly work for me, but I don't really care. Anyways, I have nothing more to say about this film. Some people will find it very generic and bland, but I personally really enjoyed it. It definitely comes from a place of heart, and I'm glad that many more people in the Latino community are finally feeling represented. I was definitely more engaged with the family drama stuff, more so than the superhero action things. Overall, I would recommend it if the trailers look interesting to you. Don't go in expecting a giant blockbuster that changes this entire genre. It has a lot of issues holding it back from being great, but I had a fun enough time watching it. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10, which might lower down to a 6.5, but I'll leave it as a 7 for now. And I'm lowering the score for The Flash to like a 6 or maybe a high 5. Also, I can't wait for Aquaman 2. That's gonna be a cinematic masterpiece. Okay, bye.